talk to you a little bit, but just tell me about like your background and growing up and everything, and why baseball? How'd you get into it?
No, definitely. So I got two older brothers, raised by my dad, Mark Dinges, and he kind of taught us the game of baseball from a young age. So we grew up in Poughkeepsie, New York. He built the house that we lived in on top of a hill, so it was pretty sweet. We had a batting cage in the basement. So that's kind of where he started. He started in the batting cage, and then you kind of just keep playing games. So grew up watching my two older brothers, Colin and Kyle, playing the game. That's how I kind of fell in love with it. And, going to Mets games as a kid was awesome, and kind of just watching the game and developing.
So you're the youngest of three then?
Correct.
Okay. Wow. How was that?
It's different. They push me every day. They still go at me, but my middle brother now is a Tallahassee State College coach, assistant coach, so I still talk to him about hitting, and he still follows the game. He loves the game, so he's coaching there. And then my other brother's in like HR, but he watches every game. So they support me a lot, but they'll humble me.
Yeah.
They'll let me have it.
So for you, when did you realize that like you wanted to play college baseball and maybe try to make a career out of it?
No, definitely. I always knew I was good. I was always above average, but I didn't know how good. I was still undersized, so I moved 3 times. I went to Virginia for a little bit, only 6 months though, because COVID hits in 2021. And then I moved to Florida with my buddy Patrick Sheffield and his family, the Sheffield family. So they let me live with them for about 6 months, and that's where I got Tallahassee State College. That's where kind of everything started developing. It was my only offer, so kind of built off of that.
Okay. For you, what was that process like? Like, how did you, I guess, still have that belief in yourself despite having to, start the junior college route and maybe feel like, oh, like I'm not quite at the D1 level yet? Like, did you start to doubt yourself at all, or did you still believe like, no, I just got to keep grinding and I'll get there eventually?
No, definitely. It was definitely humbling, but I kind of just worked day by day. I had a lot of good support groups telling me that it's going to all work out. Like, just keep working hard. You have the talent, and that kind of, when you're around like big leaguers and coaches that have like played with big leaguers and they're telling you got a chance. Even when I was only 17, it kind of kept me motivated. All right, keep working. It's going to all work out, and they were totally right.
Being in Tallahassee obviously is huge too, because you've got Florida State right there. So when did that, I guess, connection happen? Where then, when you're at, Tallahassee State, then how did that connection happen with Florida State? When did they kind of start to show interest in you and get familiar with your game?
No, definitely. So Brian Henry, our coach at Tallahassee State College, he played it. He's a legend at FSU. He's a Hall of Famer over there, and he kind of had the connection the whole time with Link Jarrett. So they were kind of watching me in the fall, but didn't pull the string on me, so I ended up committing to Maryland. And as the season went on, I was having a pretty good year, so I ended up decommitting from Maryland and kind of just left my books open, and then kind of got sick, and then from there kind of opened some doors.
Was Florida State the hope initially? Did you want to go there, or were you just like, we'll see who comes knocking kind of?
No, definitely. I mean, that was the dream, was to go to Florida State. But when I first went to Tallahassee, I didn't know what Florida State was. I didn't really know colleges that much. I didn't follow it. I kind of just followed MLB teams. Because up north, college isn't that big of a deal. There's not many big schools besides like football. But, once I got to know what Florida State was and how serious they take the baseball program, it was a no-brainer.
Yeah. So Maryland initially, was that like full, right? I know baseball scholarships are kind of weird.
No, it was.
It was a full?
No, it wasn't. But I'm
Okay.
saying, yeah.
Okay.
It was they only gave me a 30% offer, and it was a really expensive school, so it kind of wasn't in our budget, honestly. But
Yeah. Okay. And then Florida State, that was just like a walk-on opportunity.
correct,
Right?
yes.
For you still wanted to do that though. Why?
I thought you have to take the risk. If I couldn't play at Florida State, I don't think I could play for like a team like the Rattlers or play in a big league program. So it's kind of just taking a chance on yourself. And I knew I could compete with these guys. I knew that my talent would definitely show and the hard work that will pay off. So.
Yeah. So you mentioned you started to, got sick. I guess,
Correct.
Tell me, when did you start to feel like something wasn't right?
Yeah, so my sophomore year, I was having a really good year. And kind of halfway through the year, I got what's called HLH disease. So it started off with mono. Well, it started off with strep, actually. I'm sorry. Starts off with strep. That's overdone in like 3 days. I missed a little bit of games. That's fine. Then I get mono, and I'm trying to play through it. But at the time, they didn't really know it was mono. So I was trying to play through it, but my body was just shutting down. So we went to the doctors, and they kind of just kept saying it was mono originally in Tallahassee, the hospital. it's mono, but they kept me overnight. So it was obviously severe mono. And they kind of just kept saying it was mono, but this one doctor brought up HLH. He's like, you might have it, but the signs are saying you're not, because they had to do a bone marrow transplant on me, and that was saying that I didn't have it. So they kind of just kept working around it, kept saying like, you know, you don't have HLH, but it could be an option. And then I was showing no signs of progress. So one day they shipped me to Shands Hospital, and still showing no signs of progress, but they had me in like the adult center because I was above 18 at the time. And it wasn't like, nothing was getting better. So my dad actually like came in, he said something, and they moved me down to the children's like hospital, which was in Shands, and they did another bone marrow, and that's when they found out you do have HLH disease.
Wow. And Shands, was that like in somewhere else in Florida then, or is that?
That is in Gainesville, Florida.
It's in Gainesville,
Yeah.
so it's just like a bigger hospital.
It's a really big hospital, and you know, Dr. Elder, who took care of me, was like the best at what she does. Like people would fly in just to see her, but at the time, me and my dad, we didn't know anything about it, and like we didn't know what doctor was the best or anything. We just got lucky. We really got lucky.
How do you say HLH?
Yeah, it's like hemophagocytic something. I just know it as HLH, but when you look it up, it doesn't look good. It does not speak positive. So you kind of just don't look it up, and you kind of just trust the doctors that they'll take care of you.
Do you remember when that term HLH first was brought up? Like how long were you in the hospital before they said, oh, maybe it's this?
No, I was so I was about in the hospital for about a week and a half, and it was just getting worse. You know, my blood levels, all the stuff they used to do to me, like they'd poke me all the time, every 4 hours I think it was, and it was showing no signs of progress. So the doctor that came in brought it up, so then I looked it up and called my dad, and I was like, they think I have HLH disease. And when you look it up, it says you got like a 40% chance to live, and you're just like, oh no. Like I just went from having the greatest season ever, you know, I decommitted from a school that, as a kid, I would dream of going to Maryland, and it's just crazy how much progress. I was getting a lot of interest to you might never play baseball again, because chemotherapy was also brought up, but I was trying to stay away from that as much as possible, so.
So it's about a week almost then. I mean, when you went in initially, did you expect that it could be a little while? Like, I have to imagine you didn't think it was going to be, wasn't it 43 days?
Correct, yeah. So, you know, when they first said it was mono, you just know, all right, I'm not playing baseball for a month, but I'll be better. But when they kept keeping me in the hospital in Tallahassee, they made me stay overnight, which is a little weird the first night. They'll be like, all right, you're just going to stay for one night. But obviously, it led up to being a week I stayed there, and that's when you knew it was something more serious than just mono, because you wouldn't stay in a hospital for a week with just mono.
How did you feel physically and mentally and everything?
Definitely feel good. I constantly had a fever, so that's just the bad part. Was I was always sick, so your body just was dwindling down. But luckily, I mean, they had so many IV shots in me, and you know, I couldn't do a push-up because we ended up going to Shands, and I would feel like a little bit better, but it was all the steroids they were pumping in me. So I was like, all right, it's over. Like I feel better, and then all of a sudden it just hit me again. So.
When did you start to actually feel better and feel like, all right, we've got a grasp on this, there's that light at the end of the tunnel?
No, yeah. So I had like 3 to 4 stages where I felt better, and I ended up not being better. But the one time that's like actually important, I'll bring this up before I get to that, is we get out of Shands, and my parents were staying in a hotel nearby, and I start to finally feel better. But I guess while I was sleeping, like I started shivering, and my dad was sleeping next to me just to take care in another bed with my stepmom, and he was like, something's wrong overnight. So in the morning, we wake up, and like I kind of lost my vision and all that, and I like lost. I could barely even like speak words, so he had to take me back into hospital. And in Shands, this is like the final stage where it was like, all right, you're gonna stay in the hospital for a while. They took my blood test and immediately pulled me to like the back of the rooms, and I had like 20 doctors working on me, because I guess my blood levels and all that and my heart rate was like, he's about to die. So luckily, because I was refusing, I was like, Dad, I don't want to go back to the hospital. I don't want to go back. So like right after that, the doctors kind of came together and were like, all right, something's tremendously wrong. And they put me on this thing called Gamifant. So Gamifant is a drug. I actually just did an interview with them at their place for like their mid-year conference, and that was pretty good. I got to tell my story. They put me on Gamifant. For about 2 weeks, I started to feel better, and the numbers were getting better. So without Gamifant, I would probably not have survived, honestly. But it's a very expensive drug. It's about $16,000 per shot. So after about 2 weeks, I started to feel better. And then I had to stay for a while, though. I had to do rehab. So it was about a month until I was like finally good. But I was really, really weak. I varied. I went from like 150 pounds to about 205. So it was quite the drastic change.
Oh my gosh, thank you for sharing.
That was a lot of information, but I feel like I had to say it.
I'm like, a million questions are like flooding in my head. So they didn't have you go then until you did all the rehab and all that stuff too. Like they really wanted to make that was included in that 43 days then of being there. Or?
Correct. It was. I basically was just in a bed for I'd say 30 days because there's a lot of time I was in Tallahassee for about 2 weeks. I was just kind of in a bed for a month straight, and me and my dad would walk around this little circle just to get some walking in, but it was baby steps, and that was kind of the rehab. Was they would bring stuff in my room, but I was trying to train because I had Florida State. Like I was still committed to Florida State, and Florida State didn't know how drastic it was at the time, and we kind of kept it under the table. And once Link Jarrett found out about it, luckily he didn't bail on me and say you're not allowed to come. He gave me an opportunity, but they didn't know the Florida State had knew nothing that was really going on. So we kind of kept it all under the table and just kept grinding. That was what I was looking forward to. It gave me motivation.
Yeah. I was going to say, how did you just stay positive? Or were there, I have to imagine there were tough times when you're going through all that. So what's going through your head as all this is happening? You're thinking about baseball. You're thinking about your life, though, too.
No, for sure. I stayed really positive. I kind of played the not so smart role. I didn't know what the repercussions would be. I was just like, you know what, I'm one day closer to being able to play baseball again. And my dad will say it to this day. He was by my side the entire time, and that's all I talked about was baseball. I was just really looking forward to Florida State because that was a dream come true for me. Once I learned how big I knew I could play Division I, and then I didn't know about like Pro Bowl and all that till after my Florida State year. But the whole goal was just to go compete and live out my dream.
So after 43 days, when you're finally able to get out of the hospital, be home, be in your own bed, all that, like what were the emotions like?
No, it was finally a good feeling, but I went straight to work, honestly. My dad told me you take off 2 weeks, but I was begging him, let me go hit. I have a coach in Tallahassee Community College named Corey Figueroa, and he kind of trained me the entire way. Without him, I would have never be able to play at Florida State because I was so behind. I couldn't even do a push-up or a pull-up when I first got out, and I only had a month to get ready, so he all day trained me to get back. And my dad was just worried I was going to get sick again, but it was kind of the risk factor I was willing to take because I didn't want to give up on my dream. Even though I just came out of the hospital, I was like, I think I'm fine, totally fine. Because when I got out of the hospital, I still had to drive to Gainesville twice a week, and that's about 2.5 hours from Tallahassee. So I had to do that for about 2, 3, maybe even a month we did it. We did it for a while, and they had to do blood work and all that to make sure I was good. So that was another bad part because driving there like 5 in the morning. We had to do blood work before 8 a.m. every day, or the 2 days of the week. So that stunk.
No, that's crazy. Just to get the timeline correct for me, so when did you first get admitted to like the hospital in Tallahassee, and then when were you done in Gainesville?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know. My dad would know the exact times, but I know.
Or like rough, maybe? Like was it in like?
It was probably around like this time, like.
Okay.
The June, July-ish is when I got sick, maybe even August. And I didn't get out until, let's say, because I was in there September 5th, but it might have been late September.
Okay. So it was in the summer when you started to not feel great.
Correct,
And
yeah,
okay.
correct.
And you were supposed to get to Florida State by when?
That's September. I might have got in August, late August.
Okay.
And then September was kind of when school starts getting back, correct?
Yeah.
So yeah. So it was probably late August I got out, or a little bit mid-August, and then September. It was so much going on that unfortunately I don't remember the time. That's why I like when I did my interviews with my dad, he knows all the dates. He knows everything for me.
Can't dad figure it out?
I know.
We'll figure it out. So
Yeah.
HLH, do they have any idea how Because I was reading it's kind of rare.
It's extremely rare, and they think that the mono kind of turned into HLH because I was playing and training still. So when you're kind of training and killing it, like I was destroying my body because I had mono and it was already weak. So that's when the white and red blood cells start eating itself because they don't know, like they're basically on the same side. That's what happens. So then you're just constantly fevered up, and that's what caused HLH, they think.
Yeah. And you were able, like, have you ever felt like something like this might happen again, or are you just like it's in the rearview mirror, like I feel okay and I don't think about it at all, really?
Yeah, no, I try not to think about it. I know last week I think I had heat exhaustion or something. It was hot in West Michigan, and my dad was really worried. He's like, you got to go to a doctor and see what's going on because my body kind of felt weak, but I ended up feeling better the next day. And I just try not to think about it as much, but I definitely try to spread the word because, you know, it's terrible. And I met a family at Florida State actually about last year, and they came to the playoff game and they lost their son to HLH and told my dad about the story and all that. So, yeah, the small family.
Yeah.
They're really, really heartbreaking.
Yeah. I know that it's tough to have gone through it, but is it, like you said, is it good for you to see that it wasn't just you, that it affects other people and that like they've gone through it too, and I mean for you coming out on the other side of it too?
No, definitely. I got a lot of, since we go to Omaha, I was able to spread the word because I did an article at ESPN, and a lot of families reached out to me after. So it was good to reach back out to them and try to help them out. But without Dr. Elder at Shands Hospital, because they were going to the best clinics, like the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, and like all these doctors, it's just so rare. Nobody knows how to solve it, but Dr. Elder figured it out, and it definitely Gamma-Fant was the savior.
Made it out, you go to Florida State and did really well. We talked about College World Series. So then after that, that's when you entered the draft then?
Correct,
okay.
Yes.
So just 2 years at community college?
Yes, 2 years at JUCO, 1 year at Florida State, and then I got to play with some great players. I got very fortunate. It was a great team, and I'm playing against the guy that ruined my season, Blake Burke, but you know, we already have one big leaguer, Cam Smith. He's already in the show. And then you have James Tibbs, another first rounder, Jaime Ferrer. That team was just loaded. And that really taught me the game because at a junior college, you don't have that level of talent as your teammates. But when you're playing around guys like this, you learn very quick. So that was really sweet.
So have that amazing season at Florida State and then enter the draft. Where did you kind of think you might fall in the draft, or where did you think you might get picked in the draft?
Yeah, it's funny. I was really hoping like I could sneak in the third round, but I was a designated hitter all last year, so I didn't get the catch. So a lot of teams were a little worried that because you don't want to draft just a DH about the defense, but the Brewers I knew would take a shot in the fourth round. Like I kind of knew a little bit in advance because they were talking to my agent, and they drafted me right where I thought I was going to get picked. So I'm glad it all worked out.
That day, that moment, getting the phone call from the Brewers, figuring out that you're going to be part of the organization. Describe how that felt.
No, it was a dream come true. I went right back where it all started. I was with my coach, Corey Figueroa, and my brother was there. We were at Tallahassee Community College just watching it, waiting. And then once my agent called me, he knew you're going to sign. And so he gave me the call. We got to watch the name get picked, and it was a dream come true.
And now you're here. I mean, and you've been crushing it too. What's been key in that, you think? Like, how did you, because you were in Carolina, right?
Correct.
Doing so well there, and you get the call. When did you get the call up here again?
About a month ago.
A month ago.
Yeah, a month
Okay.
and a half ago.
What's just been clicking for you, you think?
You know, I already dealt with the most adversity possible. So, you know, a pitcher that's well known on the mound or has really good stuff isn't really as fearful as, you know, what I had to go through. So kind of just knowing that, you know, I've came through so much, like I'm just always going to be confident now because I got nothing to lose. That's how I play. You know, I was never a high prospect, never was. So the pressure wasn't there. The pressure was surviving in the hospital. So I kind of got through the hard part already. Now I'm playing a game for a living and I'm living out my dream. So that's the fun part.
And I have to imagine the Brewers, you going through the experience you went through with HLH. I have to imagine they saw that and that was something attractive from the standpoint of showing, hey, like I went through this and I fought through this. I have to imagine maybe that was something they said, that's a guy we want because he's gone through something really tough and come out the other side. did they have conversations with you about that at all? Like just that fight that you showed?
No, definitely. We had a lot of fall meetings at Florida State, so scouts would come to the fall. So at the end of the fall, we had the fall meetings, and that's all they brought up was the base of your adversity, and that's what we love about you the most. So it was probably a big factor in them drafting me, honestly.
Yeah, and happy to be
Oh,
part of it?
loving it, loving it. It's a dream come true, and it's a great organization.
Yeah, I know no one ever wants to put and this is a couple more questions, and I promise we're
Oh, no
done
worries,
with
no
all this
worries.
information. I know no one ever wants to like put a ceiling on things, but for you, I mean, I have to imagine you think about getting that call one day to go to the show. Is that, something you think about, and what's what do you do to get there in your mind? Like, and yeah, just what would that be like, you think?
Yeah, no, that's the ultimate goal, and I want to shine in the MLB, obviously, but it's gonna be a real special day for my family. We've been through a lot, and so it's gonna be a dream come true, and you just got to keep working. I wear this shirt one day at a time because it kind of just keeps you where you're at. You don't want to think too ahead, and you don't want to think too behind. So stay where you're at and keep working hard. And the organization is great. They're supporting me tremendously and telling me to keep working. So we're on a good path, and then hopefully soon.